All right, so we made it back home from Formula D round 6. We got a pretty tight turnaround time for round 7. We got 2 weeks, so we get this rig back, we unload everything, we inspect the rig, clean everything out, and obviously go through the car, go through the tools and the spares. So let's get right into it. This starts right up even after being down. Dude, we had this crazy shirt in here that we have no clue who it belongs to. It's been here since round 1. We're pretty sure it belongs to one of Kansai's videographers. We didn't give up on it. It's been hanging here since round 1. We're gonna return it to its rightful owner. Woo! So we usually have 2 cars upstairs. We have my S15, which I competed in last year. We've been taking it to all the rounds just in case, like a backup car. We might leave that loaded and not even bother with it because we're gonna turn around real quick and head right back out on the road. We're gonna definitely pull out my S14. It's a little bruised up from the last round, but that's how it goes. All right, let's get this thing out of here. This is a true test of Spec Tunes cold startup tune right here. Woo! So when we unload, sometimes this happens before we even unload, like literally on the drive back, we start ordering parts that I know I'm gonna need in a hurry. For example, this rear hydraulic handbrake line that got pinched when we got hit. We got a whiteboard. This was going into round 6. We're starting fresh. Cool, so first things first, hydraulic line. Cool, and that will get filled up. It looks nice and empty now, but that's not gonna stay. Got the car in the lift, and this is kind of a typical thing. Nate went through it. The nut and bolt, which is literally pages and pages of checklists of checking all the crucial bolts and nuts on it. We're kind of working our way into the engine bay, sucking out all the power steering fluid. The turn 1 pump does great, but we try to make its life easier by sucking all the old fluid out, at least out of the resi, and putting new fluid back in it. I'm gonna dump the oil out of the dry sump tank. We're gonna put the car on scales, make sure that the alignment is what I want it to be. It's about that time where we have to adjust valves. I try to do that every single round. It's not that the valve lash like runs away from us. It's just more like a visual inspection to make sure the valve train's happy, then the rocker arms, the push rods, the lifters, there's nothing going wrong in the top end. We rev this thing high. It spends a lot of time on rev limiter, so it's always good to double check that stuff. So yeah, we're just gonna jump in and keep knocking this stuff out. So this is the dry sump gear, and it's got a guide for the belt that keeps the belt positioned straight, but we got to pull it off every time we do an oil change because I like to pump out the last little bit of oil that's in the bottom of the motor, and then I also like to prime the oil after refilling it. Cool, here we go. Dude, I think this thing's finally breaking in. Yeah, that's insane. Like as the motor breaks in, it definitely has some debris, and this is the cleanest I've ever seen it. Well, that's pretty good. Look at that. It's not bad at all. We're gonna take the power steering filter apart because Nate saw some kind of metallic-y substance in the power steering fluid. So not everyone runs a power steering filter. I run it on the low pressure side exactly for instances like this, so I can capture the metal that ending up in the power steering fluid. It just happens, like these pumps, there's metal to metal. And if there's a catastrophic failure, it catches a lot of debris, kind of lets it recycle less inside the steering rack, so that way when we're doing a pump track side, we can just do the pump and not do the rack. Yeah, there's some stuff in here. There's a magnet in there as well. Shadow, you're gonna get oily, dude. And yeah, you could see a little bit of metal stuck to the magnet part of the filter, and it's exactly the same kind of it looks like anti-seize, honestly, paste that Nate saw in the actual oil itself. So we drained the oil out, got rid of a lot of that. The filter caught quite a bit of it, and I mean, that's kind of all that we can really do. Got 2 more rounds of the season left, so hopefully the pump hangs in there. Cool, let's put this back in the car. All right, so before I pull the valve covers off, there's obviously tire debris and some dirt, so I always try to blow it out to get all this stuff out before pulling the valve cover off and introducing debris into the engine. First thing I look for is make sure that it's just oily and there's not a milkshake residue, because that's when you got water going into your oil. So at least this bank, that looks good. So I'm wiping off marks on the rocker arms, because every time I do valve lash, as I check the valve lash, I mark the rocker arm so I know I don't have to go back to it. All right, so basically I turn the motor over until I get no load on one of the rockers, and that occurs when one valve is all the way open and the other one is fully closed. You can see the backlash. This is a solid lifter motor, therefore they're not preloaded, therefore you have to have a little bit of backlash, a little bit of flow between the actual valve and the rocker. So you can see that right there. And we shoot for a certain amount of gap, and I've been doing this enough to kind of just know, like, hey, this feels loose, that feels tight. Having a little bit on the looser side is always better than having it on the tighter side. If you have them too tight, then you burn a valve or run the risk of burning a valve. If you run them loose chronically over and over again, yeah, you could beat up on some components and leave some horsepower on the table as well. I'll give away our top secret. We shoot for 10 thousandths, and then I kind of stick a larger feeler gauge in there and, you know, see if 12 thousandths fits in there as well. Then I'd like to tighten it up. Sometimes it takes a little bit of patience to get it right. Cool, now we know that one's done. Let's move on to the others. When they get tight, that's when I start going, man, my valves are starting to like seat deeper into the seat. But the Texas Speedheads have been doing great. Obviously, it helps having good, solid Crowder valve train. Little tiniest bit of adjustment, like we're within 1 to 2 thou off, so stoked on that. Let's put the valve covers back on, seal it back up. The motor's looking good so far. So before I put the valve covers on, just want to wipe off any oil that might be around the perimeter of the sealing surface. That way we're not thinking that it's a fresh oil leak out of the valve cover. Same thing with the valve cover. You want to get any of the residue, and dirt makes its way to the outside of the O-ring as well. So you obviously don't want that getting on the O-ring and impeding on this like sealing surface. These are the little things that slow you down in between battles, because you're having to address things like a leaking valve cover. So this harness is not like super tucked and super like beautiful, but it kind of has to be this way. Like we're checking valve lash often, for example, or if we have a mechanical issue, you want to be able to tear this thing down quickly and not have to worry about untucking stuff. So it could look a lot nicer, but at the same time we got to think of serviceability as well. All right, we got some stuff left here that we're gonna deal with on load up. Honestly, most of the stuff's gonna have to go with us. There's always stuff that comes back that's not just even for our team. For example, we got a shock that needs some attention. This was from Rudy Hansen. Looks like one of his front shocks from his S chassis. Me running Feal Suspension, being the point of contact at the races, and that means I come home with some shocks that need attention. Looks like he got into something pretty hard. I mean, look at this freaking aluminum completely gashed. We're gonna take this back to Feal Suspension, get this thing rebuilt back to new, and we'll get it back to him. This is actually the norm. Luckily, it's only one shock for the boys at Feal Suspension to work on for now. All right, so we're at Feal, dropping off a shock. Come on, Lucky. To get rebuilt for another team, and this happens more often than not, but that's okay, because Feal's got the ability to turn these things around right before the next round. So we got Rudy Hansen's shock. Let's go inside and let them go through it, let them assess the damage and get it all buttoned back up. What's up, John?
How are you?
Doing good, doing good. So this is from FD. This is Rudy Hansen's. Only one victim this round. Looks like this reservoir took a beating. Yeah.
Yeah, he got that one real good.
Yeah, it's some damage.
I'll spin the body and the shaft in the lathe just to check that.
So let's just have it done before the end of the week, and I'll throw it in the rig and I'll just like run it over to him.
I'll get it all back up to spec for you.
Cool, sounds good. Right on, thanks, John. All right, so my guys at Feal Suspension went ahead and rebuilt Rudy Hansen's front shock. This thing's back to new, ready to go. And we're gonna take it to Utah in the rig, and he'll pick it up from us at the track. So stoked that I could help out drivers like Rudy and all the other drivers that run Feal. We do this on a regular basis for them, and that's one of the cool features of running Feal coilovers is that you can get prompt service, repair, trackside support, technical assistance, all the above. So the previous track was a bank. The majority of the time the car spent turning right. Therefore we had the alignment biased to turn right. We're going to a track that's fairly symmetrical. We're gonna be turning right and left about the same amount. So we're gonna set up the car pretty square and symmetrical on camber and toe. We also got into a bit of a tussle in a seating bracket. We got hit. It bent things just a little bit, not to a point where we have to replace big components. You just gotta go through more checks and balances to make sure that everything's square. Putting some alignment equipment on it right now, and we're also gonna dial it in the right amount of camber that I like to run on FD Utah. One thing that you can't lose track of is the knuckle angle, and you want to make sure that the knuckle angle for the most part is symmetrical left to right. So I suspect this knuckle angle is different than that knuckle angle because we got hit in this side, and it is 15.5 degrees. A little on the high side. Let's see what that side is, and then we'll know if in fact we got an unsymmetrical car. So the knuckle angle is quite important on an S chassis because the less knuckle angle you have, the more toe gain you have. Also, the less knuckle angle you have, the more the car's prone to squatting when you're accelerating. And yes, you want some of that, but not too much, because then you're not loading the tire into the ground. You're actually just letting the energy go to suspension movement instead of the energy going directly back into the tire and actually planting into the ground. We have a value that we like to shoot for, but right now the most important thing is we want to make sure that they're square left to right. This one's about 15 degrees. So we're gonna pull some knuckle angle out of that. The knuckles rock forward a little too much. And you can visually kind of see from the side of the car that that wheel is sucked in forward a little bit. Or let's rock that knuckle back. When we rock the knuckle back, it's also gonna change the camber. It's gonna throw that off. It's also gonna throw off the toe. You kind of open up a can of worms, but that's okay. We could square everything back up after we address the knuckle angle. on top of measuring the knuckle angle, when this car was driven by Simon Olsen, I had Chris helping me run the car. Chris already made a note in the door jamb, a reference point to measure from, and this way we could quickly check to make sure that the wheelbase is what it needs to be, and it's coming up a little bit short. So it looks like it's coming up 1/8 of an inch short. So we'll address that. We'll double check the measurement here as well to make sure that we're hitting our goal, we're hitting the mark. So it's kind of a balancing act between the camber arm and traction arm. That's two different arms that point in different directions. So as you extend the traction arm, you're rocking the knuckle back. It's gaining positive camber as well. And then you have to take the camber arm and also compensate for what you just did, because you want to have a certain camber, but yet you want the knuckle to rock back. So you have to kind of move it in two different axes. Cool, let's check a knuckle angle right now. All right. This is perfect. Let's set rear toe. Laser beam that thing and see where it's at. The wheels look way more centered in the wheel arc, which is great. And the numbers make more sense too. Just gonna tighten everything up. We're gonna go up and we're gonna mock up the exhaust because we had to cut a chunk out. Dustin cut the Y pipe out because it was cracking. We could have repaired the Y pipe, but when it's cracking, it's obviously fatigued, so we're just gonna replace the entire Y pipe. All right, so we had an old piece of exhaust that was cracking. It was the Y pipe. We cut the Y pipe out of the exhaust system. Now we're mocking the pieces of the exhaust back up on the car. We're gonna position the new Y pipe with the exhaust where it looks like it's happy, tack weld it together, and then pull it back off the car and actually finish welding it all back together. We also found a few cracks in the headers, so we fixed those. And yeah, this thing should be good for the rest of the season after these repairs. So ever since I put a dry sump on this car, we stopped using an oil cooler, and it's been fine for the most part. But Utah, this next Formula D round, is actually a pretty long track that demands a lot of the motor. You're at high RPM for a really long time, and the ambient temps are pretty high. So we're gonna install this massive Durali oil cooler in the car. For this round, we're anticipating that we might put more load on the motor and the oil temps will get higher than we're comfortable with. The Durali unit comes with an electric fan. We're not gonna run the electric fan because I think that the oil cooler is so efficient in itself that we won't need that. The fan might be overkill. We also don't really like running weight up front if it's not absolutely necessary. So I'm gonna strip down the fan and build a quick bracket for it. And I think that'll be more than enough oil cooling capacity for the car for the Formula D Utah round. Hydraulic line failure last round because we got hit in the back and some of the components went and took out a brake line, and we had to quickly re-bleed my hydraulic handbrake, and it got me thinking, what if this happens in a more time-sensitive situation? We won't have the time to properly bleed the handbrake. So I'm taking a Wilwood reservoir cap, we're gonna put a Schrader valve in it, so that way I can quickly pressurize the system and have my guys in the back just crack the bleeder. This is the perfect time to give this a try. I've seen this done at a grassroots event in Europe, actually, on a BMW E90. We're gonna try this here at the shop. We'll bleed the system. If it works out and it goes quick, then we know we can employ this at the racetrack and bleed the brakes super fast. Bam, look at that. Custom tool right there. We'll call this the Baksheesh bleeder. the idea is we're gonna hook this up fairly low pressure setting, and we're gonna pressurize the brake system, and then Nate's gonna crack the bleeders, and hopefully it pushes fluid all the way through the system, pushing out any of the air. Top it off so that way we could push a lot of the fluid through without having to open it back up and top it off again. Hopefully do it in one shot. Oh, it's definitely pressurizing it pretty quickly. All right, Nate, hit it. We can see the pressure actually dropping. This is the pressure inside the system. That's insane. We just put a dry line on it. We only bled one side, the longest run to the furthest caliper, and it's already like insanely good. So I'm just keeping an eye on the pressure inside the system and not letting it drop to zero. All right, close it up. We're good. Yeah, this is great. What's cool about this too is like the low pressure side, when you pressurize it, you can quickly check for leaks, because under 10 PSI, if there's, you know, a slow leak on the low pressure side, it'll definitely push fluid out. I'm definitely using this anytime I'm putting a dry brake system together or just bleeding brakes in general. This is going in our toolbox right here. So we thought we had the car ready to load, and after it sat for a night or two over the weekend, it was leaking tons of power steering fluid. I'm so happy it happened now, not unloading the car in Utah, not after a few practice runs at Utah. It'd be nice to be loading the car right now instead of working on it, but hey, I'll take the failure at the shop versus at the track. So the list for Utah has grown, and this is the norm. This is why we bring the cars back. We go through them, and as we go through the cars, we go through the rig, there's more things that we stumble on. So as you can see, it's definitely becoming a larger list. Some of the things you saw in this video are kind of like the bigger major things, but there's so many little things that we find, like little cracks on the chassis here and there that we don't show you, that we have to attack because we're just in a hurry trying to get through stuff. And there's some like very mundane things that you just have to do every single time, like vacuum out the car, wipe everything out, wipe rubber out of inner wheel wells. The list just goes on and on. These are just some of the things that are kind of almost abnormal that you got to remember, but there's such a long list of things that are just like tribal knowledge for all of us guys, just checking off. But that's what you need to do to be prepared for the Formula D rounds. So yeah, just checking things off, and we're almost done through the list, almost ready to just pack it up and hit the road. So we're kind of in a time crunch loading up. I thought we had all day. We have plenty of daylight left, but the wind is literally bringing those black clouds right at us, and you could see the water coming down in the distance. So yeah, when it gets windy like this right now and you see black clouds, it's about to freaking rain. So let's get all this loaded up before we're in the rainstorm. Everything's got its place, and it's really important we put them all back in their place, because we got like 3 dudes working out of these bins, so everyone's got to be confident that when they look in, for example, the plumbing bin, they know that's where the caps are going to be, the ones that I just put back in. So that was it. You guys saw us unload, go through everything. There's some stuff you didn't see us go through because there's just so much that is done in between rounds, but we're all loaded, and the important part is we're ready. So we're gonna hit the road, and we'll see you at the track in Utah.